All right, welcome everyone today and this morning. We are going to get started right away, and I'm just allowing more people to come in. But my name is Diana Wright. I work here at the Greater Des Moines Partnership and primarily work with the small business, startup, and entrepreneurship community all across central Iowa. And so we're excited to kick off today the Top 5 series, and really directed at small business, the business community. But I think today's message is even broader than that. And we're here with Michele Matt. And before we introduce Michele, I would like to share that if you guys have questions, thoughts, even feedback as we're going through today's presentation, please share that in the chat. I know Michele is looking for this to be as interactive as possible. And so please don't hesitate to do that as we're going through today's presentation. And so Michele is with us today, and she is based out of Des Moines, Iowa. She actually started her business in 1991, and that was called Inspiring Solutions. And to date, she has worked with over many different teams, individuals, and primarily organizations all around performance in a variety of industries, but really specializes in healthcare, long-term care, and insurance and financial services. So today, Michele is going to be talking a little bit about how to stay positive in a negative world. She recently has a book and is an award-winning author, and that book is called Attitude, and the choice is yours. So I know she's going to be sharing a little bit more about that later today. And I learned recently that both Michele and we actually have a similar connection and kind of home base in Clear Lake. And so that's fun to learn. And she enjoys doing that on her off time. So Michele, if you would like to kick us off, and I'll take it from here.
Great, I would be happy to. Thank you, Diana. And thank you all for choosing to spend the next hour together. I'm always curious when people choose to participate in this particular topic, if they're coming because they need an attitude adjustment, or maybe they're living or working with somebody who could use an attitude adjustment, or maybe a combination of both. But I'm delighted to have the chance to inspire you today, to really help you get through this crazy world that we're now living in. So I'm curious to know, if you are a business owner, how many of you are finding that you are hiring and firing your employees, not based on their aptitude, but on their attitude? I have found that more and more human resource professionals are doing the recruiting. And I know that's one of the biggest challenges that today's workplace is finding, good people. And are they willing to learn? Are they willing to grow? Are they willing to change? Are they willing to adapt to the constantly changing world that we're now in? Regardless of how many letters behind their name or how many years of experience, if they come to work each day with the right mindset or emotional intelligence, that's really what's going to make the difference. So as Diana said, I wrote a book and it's an interactive book, and I've had a lot of teams decide to make it a book study. So if that's something that you'd like to do, or even with your family, my then 18-year-old daughter was the first to have read the book, and she said it was a fabulous read for her. And it's just basically a book that helps people understand how their attitude impacts their life. There's an assessment that they take to kind of identify what type of attitude they might have, how to deal with those difficult attitudes, whether it's at work or whether it's at home. And then what I'm going to share with you today are some of the ways that you can adjust your attitude. I have found that if you can change the way you think, it'll change the way you react and how you obviously will receive things that happen to you in life. And then ultimately how to gain control and maintain a positive attitude in the crazy world that we're now living in. So feel free, my email is at the bottom of the slides. If you'd like to reach out afterwards, I'd love to have a conversation with you and help you and your team or your family gain control of your life by finding some joy and balance. Like Diana said, don't be a zombie. I like to have people engage because it's the best way to learn. So I will welcome you to unmute yourself and chat. I appreciate seeing smiling faces. because that makes it real for me. And most importantly, I want you to have some fun, because I think this should be a happy hour. So I'd like for you, and I know if I were in a classroom with you, I'd have you shout it out, but I'd like for you to look at this slide and tell me, what do you read? And you can either type it in or you can unmute yourself. But what do you read from this slide? Oh, way to go, TJ. TJ said opportunity is now here. But I want to ask you, and be honest, did you first see opportunity is nowhere? 9 times out of 10, every person that sees this first sees the negative. And that's how life is. Since age 5, you've been getting feedback from other people, whether it was your parents, your teachers, your bosses, your customers, not on what you did right, but what you did wrong. We live in a negative world. And if you don't believe me, watch tonight's news. Even this morning, I was watching the news, and it's all about the concern for those living in Florida. But obviously, as TJ saw, and perhaps you did as well, opportunity is now here. 2 ways of looking at the exact same thing. We may or may not be able to control the situation that we are in, but we can control how we respond. I like my students to think about learning is like fishing. I grew up in a small town in Northeast Iowa. We also were kind of reminiscing on life in Iowa. And I grew up along the Turkey River. And I didn't like to fish, but it was something that we did. I watched my dad and grandpa. And the adage is that if I fish for you, you'll eat for a day. But if I teach you how to fish, you will eat for a lifetime. And what I hope to do today, and anytime I have a chance to inspire a person or a group, is I want to help you learn how to think differently. Because if you are feeling empowered, whether it be at work or at home, or if you are a leader, and if you learn how to empower your team, it will help them feel like they can control their life, even though at times it might not. I'm actually over in Carthage, Illinois, staying at a Hampton Inn in Keokuk, Iowa. And I usually like to stay at the Hamptons because of all the amenities. But this is a picture of my bathroom door today. It says, "It's a great day to be great." And that just is a great way to start off on a positive note, regardless of how many hours of sleep you got, regardless of the weather, but you have a choice. Through the pandemic, and I hope that you've been able to navigate through and come out with some perhaps new insights. I would love for you to type in the chat or to just say out loud, how has the pandemic caused you to change your perspective and priorities? Diana and I were talking about, some people really like working from home. It's been a silver lining that people now can work from wherever and live the lifestyle that they'd like. So if you would, I'd love to hear a couple of you talk about how has the pandemic changed your perspective or your priorities? Family first. Thank you. TJ, you get the early bird award. Yeah, I think that a lot of people have realized that really family is ultimately the most important. I have had a much better relationship with my brother who lives out in California. In fact, even looking forward to spending Thanksgiving together. He came back to Iowa after about 7 years. I think there was this coming home feeling. And there's a lot of comments that came in, and I don't know, Diana, if you want to keep up with those, that would be great. If you want to chime in.
Yeah, so Cheryl said it was a good reminder that life is short and take more time for family and yourself. Haley shared, it has helped me appreciate time with others more, being more present. And then Donna said, I worked remote and I prefer the office environment and connections. So
that's it. We have gone back to some basics. We do realize that we need that interaction. As nice as it is to have these virtual connections, there isn't anything better than being in the same room. And for what Haley said, appreciating time with others. We have a group of friends here in Des Moines that get together once a month, and it's our gathering time to celebrate birthdays or anniversaries or weddings or, grandchildren being born. But we have learned that we have to make it a priority because otherwise it doesn't. When I see one from Annika, you want to read that one as well?
Yep. So prioritizing flexibility and with empathy when interacting with others, whether that's in person or on Zoom.
Yeah, a lot of key skills you power packed in that. Prioritizing, because life is short. Flexibility, we have definitely learned how to be agile. Those organizations that were able to figure out how to turn and deliver their product or service survived much better than those that were waiting for someone to come rescue them. And again, being able to deliver it virtually or in person. So what is an attitude? I'm going to just give you a simple definition that I write about. It's your thoughts, it's your feelings about yourself, your job, your day, the weather, people around you. And it's those thoughts and those feelings that cause you to respond in a certain way. And oftentimes you will do or say things to others based on what you think about. And that's really what emotional intelligence is all about. And you've heard the computer axiom, garbage in, garbage out. So in order for you to get the results that you want in a job, in a relationship, personal or professional, you've got to gain control of what you think about. So why is that important? So I'm going to give you some examples of thoughts and feelings and actions and first of all, results. If you were to think about what you want to enjoy in life, the late, great Stephen Covey wrote about the 7 habits of highly effective people. And that is to begin with the end in mind. And if you were to think about what you want to enjoy in life, whether you are or whether you'd like to gain a greater sense of satisfaction, what is it that's important to you? And I'd like for you to jot it down, or you can write it in the chat. Now, knowing that those results are going to most likely come from what you do, I'd like for you now to think about how would you like other people to describe you today, this week, or in general, because you have a choice. There are 5 skills of emotional intelligence. And the first is self-awareness. This is what we're tapping into this morning. But the ultimate is your ability to adapt your emotions to reflect an appropriate action for a situation. So even though the odds may be against you, you can certainly be decisive or courageous. And then finally, since it all begins with the in, what are those underlying thoughts that give you that inspiration or give you that hope, faith, or love? How many of you love your job? I sure hope you're doing something that you love to do. I love to create. In fact, I've not only been creating from a business perspective, but now kind of as a hobby, I'm starting to find my love for refurbishing homes. As Diana mentioned, I have a home in Clear Lake that I've been working on for the past 10 years. But I also have an investment property back in my hometown of Elkader, built in 1930, that I am restoring. And I love the challenge of figuring out how to give new life to outdated space. If you find yourself lacking confidence in a crazy world or in a crazy environment, or practicing patience, I lived through my mom's dementia. In fact, I'm walking with the Alzheimer's walk this weekend. And if any of you know of any loved one, I would love to have you either join our team or make a donation to that, because I think through the experience that my family had with that disease, it's taught me how to be patient. And then finally, understanding. So if you take a look at how you ultimately can choose what happens to you in life, it gives you that sense of accomplishment. So let me just pause and have you respond or give me any questions that you might have. I'd love to learn from this column what words were attractive to you. And I always say, go with what first caught your attention. Maybe it's being courageous. You know, we've had to be pretty courageous through this pandemic and out of the pandemic to try and do new things. How about from your perspective? What words caught your attention on any of those 3 columns? All right, again, TJ comes in first. Happiness, enthusiastic. Great, Annika. I apologize if I mispronounce words, names. Yeah, and again, I think we have to take charge of our life, or it will pass us by. So what I'm going to, an inner peace. Thank you, Amy. So how is your attitude communicated on a regular basis? We interact on a regular basis using words, tone of voice, and body language. And if you would think about first words, what out of 100 do you think comes just from your choice of words? And I'm looking for a number. Any guesses? What percent of a communicated message? All right, I'm seeing 25. 10. All right, we're trending in the right direction. Would you believe less than 10? Only 7% of how we communicate to each other comes from the actual word. And I've got a couple of exercises that's going to demonstrate this. What then do you think out of the remaining 93 comes from tone of voice? This is not what you say, but how you sound. You know, you're hearing my words, but it's the inflection. It's that tone that is making the message. What would you guess? All right. So anything from 20 to 40 to even 65. Well, I'm going to split the difference and go with 38%, which means if you're doing the math, over half or 55% of how you and I communicate does not come from what you say, but from what you do. Now, granted, during this virtual communication, the body language is at a disadvantage because some of you, I'm not seeing your facial expressions. But if we were in a face-to-face setting and in a meeting, we can definitely tell how people feel through their eyes. Even when wearing a mask, we called it smizing. People could tell if you were happy, or your body language. I always like to ask people that have pets, how many of you believe they communicate to you on a regular basis? This is actually up in Clear Lake. These are the lake labs. You can tell from their eyes. You can tell from their ears. You can tell from their nose, or my Murphy, who's on the left, who's licking his lips, or what they're thinking or what they want. And how many of you have some pretty nice conversations with them without spoken words? It's that body language. So what we need to be aware of is how we roll our eyes, wiggle our ears, and wag our tail as we strut through life or corridors at work. You cannot not communicate. You're always communicating something through your body language. Now, words is a unique, our English language oftentimes doesn't make sense, because if you heard she's hot, tell me, what might that mean? And write it in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself. All right, thank you, Donna. She's attractive. Absolutely. Haley says physically attractive. What else might it mean? She's on a roll. Thank you, Annika. Yeah, she's whatever she's doing, she's doing good. She's being successful in whatever project she's working on. I did this once for a group in Detroit, and they said she's menopausal. So whatever it might mean, it could have different meanings to people. So how easily our single words can be misunderstood. Now, I get teased as being an Iowa farm girl with this exercise. What I'm going to do is communicate it to you several different ways. And I want you to listen and figure out what the meaning of the message might be. If I were to tell you that I didn't steal your cow yesterday, I'm implying that I didn't do it. Don't blame me. I might know who did and might tell you if you ask. I didn't steal your cow yesterday implies that I did something else. I borrowed it, I have it, but I'm going to give it back. Or how many of you are familiar with tipping cows? I didn't steal your cow yesterday, but I've got your brother's or your neighbor's cow. I didn't steal your cow yesterday. I have the horse. I have your chicken. your husband, your car. And finally, I didn't steal your cow yesterday. It's been long gone. You just haven't noticed. So even though the words didn't change, the meaning did because of the emphasis. So how many of you spend quite a bit of time on the telephone, or in a Zoom or a WebEx virtual communication? They may not be able to see your smiling face or your frown if you're having a bad day, but they can certainly hear from your tone what kind of day you're having. So be aware that you communicate more through your tone than through the actual words. Now, when I was doing my research, I tried to simplify the types of attitudes. And I think there's 3 general types of attitudes. There are positive attitudes, and I call these folks our players, because those are the folks that are making things happen. They're involved in committees. They're volunteering to take on projects at work. Or I think of my grandson who loves football, and he's just really a go-getter. He's one of the team captains over in Solon. There are unfortunately those that are negative, however, and they're the critics. They're quick to criticize or ridicule when somebody makes a mistake. And I think oftentimes they're having a bad day, so they try to cut people down to their own level. And then there's a third, but fairly new and rapidly multiplying attitudes. And if you have teenagers, you might think of them. They're called spectators. Unlike the players that are making things happen, or the critics that are trying to stop things from happening, these spectators kind of sit back and watch life happen. And one of their common phrases is the term whatever. And they usually roll their eyes, which is a great body language, or they say some snide comments sarcastically under their breath. So this is a great example of how 3 different types of attitudes are portrayed. My question to you is, who determines what you say on a regular basis? Who determines how you sound in meetings or over the telephone? And obviously, who determines how you present your body language, your facial expressions, your body language as you interact with others? And the answer is you. So life is full of choices, and I love analogies because I think people can identify with them. And you all probably have this device and maybe been allowed to hold it once or twice in your hand. It's the remote control. And I never know why there are so many buttons on the device, because I can't figure out just the basics. And I think that's kind of about life. We need to simplify our life. What are the basic few things that you need to really enjoy life? Don't complicate it more than it needs to. But the analogy that I have as today's topic is that when we pick up the remote, we look for the power. Turn on the power of energy within the television set. And each day of your life, when you wake up, regardless of the weather, regardless of the day of the week, regardless of how many hours of sleep or restless you were the night before, you can turn on that power and have a great day and get the most out of it. Or you can choose to whine and complain about how bad the day is and try to ruin everyone else's. Now, what happens when we get to a show or a channel we don't want to watch? We change it, don't we? In fact, how quickly we can surf through the 100 or so channels and conclude there's nothing good on. Well, how quickly we can decide if something or someone on the screen attracts our attention. Well, the same to it is with you and your life. You are in the driver's seat. If you are in a situation that is not healthy, if you are in a relationship that is not healthy, if you're in a neighborhood that you're not enjoying, the good news is you can move. You can change jobs. If you're miserable, or I always coach managers, if you're with a team, maybe one of your employees is just miserable every day on the job, give them a good talking to, or give them a good pep talk and tell them, you know what, the job is paying your bills. Come fresh the next day, recognizing that, you know what, when you're here, you're getting paid to make a difference. Otherwise, quit. You're not only miserable, you're making everybody else miserable. So know that life is full of choices. This is a quote that I really believe strongly in, and it's really the platform in which I'm inspiring you today to think about. Positive thoughts can change your whole day. A positive mindset can change your whole life. because I don't want you to feel like you are a victim of a circumstance. You have far more control over an environment than you may feel. It might take some courage. It might cause you to speak up. In fact, I've just launched a new app called Inspiring Mentor. And it's a way that I can help busy people create joy and balance in their life. And if you're interested, we're about to start a new Live Up challenge that helps people realize that there are significant emotional events in our past that have crafted who we are today, but that does not determine who you will be in the future as a spouse, as a parent. Maybe you are parenting your parents. I know my parents have since deceased, but I took that role as a child very serious. And I am so glad that I was able to help them live out the last chapter in their life. Many of you might be learning a new role at work and learning how to change your mindset in those roles can change your entire life. So now what I want to do is have some fun with some tune-up techniques. I write about them in the book, and I'm going to give you at least the concept today and help you to practice them on a regular basis. So if you're having a little bit of doubt, I want you to learn how to practice these tune-ups. The first is to listen to your self-talk. This has two applications. The first is start paying attention to your choice of words, your tone of voice, and your body language. And would people be apt to describe you as positive? Meaning, are you a player in the game of life? Or are you more critical of others or of a situation? Or are you one of those spectators that kind of sit back and kind of let somebody else take the lead? So listen to your choice of communication. The other part, and that's why I have a train here, is actually listening to yourself talking to yourself. How many of you remember the classic book about the little engine that could? You know, that was a simple but powerful story that I love to read to my grandkids. Even read it to my dad after his open heart surgery, because she thought she could deliver the toys over the mountainside. And she kept chanting over and over again, I think I can, I think I can. And she eventually did. And what I have found through the startup my business, through 2 failed marriages, through the pandemic, I have always believed that if I think I can, with some hard work and determination, I will. But even if you don't, you won't, because you'll talk yourself right out of accomplishing something. So listen to your self-talk. The second is something that we want, happiness. In fact, there's a song, Don't Worry, Be Happy. But unfortunately, so many people expect someone or something to bring them happiness. How many of you remember back when you were in high school, or maybe you've got a teenager that's got this mindset that they can't wait to graduate, move out from underneath mom and dad's control, and then finally start living life? Well, then maybe you remember going on to college, and by that last semester of books, you couldn't wait to get that first job and stop studying. Well, even now, maybe working full time or even multiple jobs just to make ends meet. You're thinking, wow, why am I working so hard? I'm not enjoying life. Well, recognize this, that it is highly unlikely that someday your doorbell will ring and there in front of you is Publishers Clearinghouse to solve all your financial debt or problems and deliver happiness. You've got to learn to find happiness on your own. And that's why I believe in creating joy. So what I'd like you to do is either, again, unmute, or you're doing a great job in the chat. I'd like for you to write down, and I always in the book, I have people write down 5 things that bring them happiness. I'd like for you at least write down something that brings you joy or happiness today. As I look out the window, it's a clear blue sky here in Keokuk. Weather is always a factor, but I know the folks in Florida are probably not able to find joy. They might be just thankful that they have a roof over their head. So let's hear, what is it that brings you joy or gives you happiness today? All right, TJ, once again, quick on the typing. success at work, my child, and good food. Thank you, the basics. Amy, a day with nothing on my calendar. Wow, is that for you today? You are blessed. It's a full day of choices. Any others? Cheryl, and I'm not keeping up, so do you want to help me out, Diana?
Yep, so Cheryl, I'm losing it too. My 3 boys, fireflies, employees that enjoy their jobs, and a good book besides fire. Annika, the morning first hot cup of coffee, cheers to that. I actually said live music later tonight, watching some jazz. And then TJ changed my answer to Amy's answer, which was, let me go back, a day with nothing on my calendar.
Nice, nice. Oh, awesome. Well, thank you. You know, again, giving yourself permission to enjoy life, even though it may be filled with doom and gloom. The third technique is going to help you deal with something that I find individuals, teams, and organizations are challenged by, and that is when they have to embark on change or when they are forced to change. That's usually when I'm asked to help them through it. So I created this tune-up technique called seek comfort with change. Doesn't that sound like an oxymoron? Putting 2 words in the same sentence that really don't go together, kind of like jumbo shrimp, pretty ugly, or one of my favorites, Microsoft Works. Because when we encounter change, it's not comfortable. It feels awkward. It feels we're afraid we might lose control. And if you really think about change, it's a sign of growth. I think anytime I help individuals change their mindset around change, I have them come up with a different word than using change. You know, maybe call it initiative. Maybe it's growth. Maybe it is opportunity. But I think that you need to realize if you are not changing, if you are not learning as an organization or as a team, as a parent, as just a person in life, you're dying. And I don't mean to make it blunt, but I will give you an example. How many of you remember Charles Schultz? He brought us Peanuts, Snoopy and the gang. And he was about to embark on one of life's significant changes, retirement. And when asked what he was going to do in retirement, he said, you know, I don't know. I've been focused on writing cartoons my entire life. He didn't have the next step. And unfortunately, the same week that his last cartoon issue came out, he died. And I am dating a doctor for now almost 5 years, and he recently retired this summer. And it's been very interesting to watch him go from having such a set schedule, a Monday through Friday routine, to now having nothing on his calendar. Although it sounds great, I can tell that it's a new dance. It's a new vibe for him, and he's picking up the pace, but I think it was scary for him, especially because the economic situation that we're in. So what this means is you need to take one step, one day at a time. You know, what can you do and what can you learn today? I commend you on making this a part of your day to day. I'm hoping by the end that you've learned some way of thinking about life, or yourself, or your job, or your relationship differently. And that's all you can do. There are so many factors in our life, in our world, that we can't control. We need to learn how to manage and control the things that we can. The fourth tune-up technique is going to help you with relationships. And like so many of you have realized through the pandemic, when it all boils down, the only thing that we really care about ultimately are relationships. So those relationships that you care about might be your family, your direct family. When was the last time you said the words, I love you, to a child, to a spouse? When was the last time you said to somebody, I'm proud of you? I'm really trying to do that a lot with my grandkids. I probably will admit that I didn't do it as much with my children, and maybe it was a word that I wanted to hear from my parents, but hearing the word proud says, you know, I know you're doing the best that you can, and I'm proud for your attempt and your success. Now at work, you may not think about using those words, but when was the last time you said thank you? I don't want these words or these phrases, please and thank you, to be taken for granted, because just as negativity as contagious, I believe positivity and kindness is contagious. So learn how to show appreciation for those relationships that you have, both at work and at home. And then the last tune-up technique I want to share with you is stop shoulding on yourself. Now, you probably thought I said something nasty, but I didn't. What I said is stop shoulding on yourself. How many times in a day does a voice go off and say something like this? Oh, Michele, you should have left for work earlier. Or, oh, Michele, you should have gotten that project or that email sent before end of day. Well, we can fill our mind with guilt and recognize that you can never should have done anything. But what you can do is you can tune in and listen to it. So if you have a should do on your radar today, take action. Don't procrastinate. Don't put off something that you could do today for tomorrow. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to commit to something that you should do today and that you will do by the end of your day, and type it in the chat. It could be something at work. I'm going to be doing some work with Bank Iowa, and I will put together my handouts and PowerPoint today because I'm actually working here in the hotel all day today until I go back to the hospital tomorrow. So I've got a day that I can work on a project that I don't normally get to when I'm with a client. So let's hear, what is something that you should do and that you will do today? Maybe it's something, maybe it's a phone call. It doesn't have to be anything significant. Maybe it's reaching out to somebody that you're concerned about in Florida. Maybe it's writing a thank you note. I wrote a thank you note to my client and gave it to her yesterday when I was on site because she's a great leader and she's had some personal challenges. And I just really wanted her to know how much not only I appreciate her leadership, but that her team appreciated her. All right, so what do you have to say here for those should do's? All right, thank you, Haley. I see securing a gift for tomorrow's baby shower. Awesome, I like the word securing. That means that you're either going to order it, you're going to make it. Annika, reach out to a friend from Missouri I need to reconnect with. Thank you. I do think that that's now a lot easier to do. Ah, good choice, Amy. She's going to eat a healthy lunch for once. Get your greens. And Donna, go to an exercise class. Yeah, we can talk ourselves into or out of things. And in kind of conclude the conclusion, sorry about that. I want you to realize, stop your stinking thinking. You can be long on excuses, or you can give yourself that pep talk that helps you live the life that you want to live. Now, before I move on, I want to acknowledge that everyone is allowed to have a bad day now and then. I have them. I've had lots of them. In fact, I find that the bad days make the good days that much better. But if on those bad days, you can find something to like or laugh about or give love to, it really helps to soften it. I do find that I have great joy or comfort being around my Labrador, Murphy. He gives me great joy. I loved spending the pandemic evenings with Greg. Obviously coming back, he was a doctor at Uni Point, coming back after days seeing COVID patients. And it was just kind of a comfort to know that we're in this world and in this journey together. So I want to share with you 5 maintenance strategies, ways to help you maintain control of your life, even though the odds may be against you. So first and foremost is start fresh each day. And I love doing this program early in the morning because it kind of sets my day, and I'm hoping that it's setting your day off on a positive note. And another way that you could do it is tomorrow morning, after you've brushed your teeth, look at yourself in the mirror, and whether or not you're having a bad hair day or not, I want you to give yourself a mental pep talk, just like a coach does to their team before a game, and say out loud, as Billy Crystal said it best, "Darling, you look marvelous," because that may end up being the nicest thing that you hear all day. So start fresh. The second maintenance strategy I think is really important. If you haven't done so, gain control of your life by clarifying the roles and prioritizing your goals. In my book, I've actually given space to this exercise, and it's a couple steps, but I'll give you the idea. First of all, think about the roles that are important to you, as a wife, as a mother, as a leader, as a volunteer. And what are those roles that are going to be most important to give you that sense of balance? Because we can easily feel as though our life is out of balance. Kind of like when somebody's balancing sticks, balancing plates up on a stick. You may have seen it done when they're putting that last plate up, that first plate starting to wobble. So they usually run over getting that up running solid again. And that's usually how we feel in our life, trying to balance our career, trying to balance our home life, trying to keep ourselves healthy. So prioritize what is most important to you in those roles. More specifically, how would you like to be remembered in those roles? And I'll give you an example. I suffered some health issues in college, and I think I was burning the candle at both ends, trying to maintain a 4.0 grade point average. I worked a couple part-time jobs. I didn't want to miss out on any extracurricular activities. And right before finals, I was so exhausted, I could barely catch my breath walking up a flight of stairs. So I went to the doctor and learned that I had bronchial pneumonia, and I either needed to be hospitalized or I needed to have my parents come down and take care of me. And that was a very significant emotional event in my life. And it taught me that life needs to come in moderation. You can't do it all. And so when I wrote my guiding statements, the very first one was that I'm a happy and healthy person. I have obviously chosen to be happy in life, even though there are some things that bring me down. I want to choose to find the goodness in life, and I want others to find that. But I also realize that if I want to help people, I've got to take care of myself. Self-care is so virtually important. So learn how to set those guiding statements, and they will serve as the compass in your life. Two more that I've written that I'll share with you. The second one guides my personal life, and that is I'm a loving, caring, patient daughter, sister, relative, nana, and friend. And then the third is my guiding statement in my career, and that is that I'm an honest and trustworthy professional. So learn how to clarify and prioritize your life. The third is to enjoy the moment. I'm talking about right now. Each time I have the privilege of inspiring a group, I think of it like our life's journey coming together for a moment at an intersection. Who knows if this group will ever be assembled together? So embrace it. Learn how to absorb the beauty of the knowledge, the talent, the situation that you're in. And this concept is summarized by this quote here: the past is history. It's over and done with. The only thing you can do with it is learn from it. And I know, unfortunately, sometimes people continue to live in the past. The future is a mystery. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? And I think it's up to you to start to craft and prepare for it. But today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. And I really think that a lot of times people facing death or a life-threatening disease have the greatest appreciation of what really matters most in life. Back in my early career, I went through a Dale Carnegie course. And if you ever have a chance, I would encourage you to do so. And I went through a course with probably about 30, 40 people. And one woman named Anita was diagnosed with breast cancer during our experience. And I will remember one specific speech. She got up in front of the group right before the holidays, and she said that she was so excited because all of her family were going to be gathering together to celebrate her life. And we know what that might have meant. And as she looked out, she saw many of us crying, and she came back very confidently and she said, do not cry for me. She said, I feel so blessed that I'm going to have the opportunity to let the people know how much I care and love them. Don't wait for a second chance or a better chance or more time to say to those people that you care about what you really feel. And that really resonated well with me. So don't take life for granted. Now, on a happier note, learn to express, don't suppress your feelings, which means if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. I learned from my grandpa, and he was a jovial Irishman, the beauty of whistling. And the reason that whistling is so important is you can't have a bad attitude when you whistle. And I see and I hear Greg whistling on days, and it just makes me feel good. And I usually try to join in with them. And the reason that that happens is your mind is distracted. So what I'm going to do, and I may not be able to hear you, but if you want to unmute yourself, I'm going to start whistling a popular tune. If you don't recognize it, I want you to click your fingers or clap your hands, but I want everyone to partake in this. Here it goes. Woohoo! Well, thank you for those that were courageous enough to join me, because you will, in fact, embrace life to the fullest. And then the last way I want to share with you how to stay positive in a negative world is to surround yourself with positive influences. This picture is actually one of our interns in years past, Sarah, who found a mural of a window to the beach, because my home-based business is actually in a utility room. It's probably the fanciest utility room you've ever seen, but we have drywall, we have can lights, but there's no window. So she ended up posting this as a mural. It's a beautiful mural. In fact, they added a palm tree since then. But what I'm trying to get you to think about is your surroundings at work, at home, and using the 5 senses. What are some of your favorites? And what I'd like you to do is think about what in your surroundings brings you positivity. In other words, what do you like to see? You like to see the sunshine. So get those windows cleaned, open them up. This fall is a beautiful time where you can actually turn off the air conditioner before we have to turn on our furnace. Let the sunshine in. Think about what you like to hear. I love music, and I have several Pandora stations playing in the background when I'm working. One of my favorites is actually it's called Music for Your Dog. Check it out. It's fabulous. What things do you enjoy smelling? I love to burn candles. I love fresh food being baked. Speaking of food, what do you enjoy to eat? Maybe it is your cup of coffee in the morning. I went downstairs here at the Hampton and got some bacon. I don't usually get to have bacon, but that's a treat. And then finally, what do you like to feel or touch? Maybe it's a bubble bath. Maybe it's a nice handshake. Maybe it's a hug. We certainly didn't get to share very many of those during the pandemic. So let me pause and ask for you to once again type in the chat, what are some of your favorites? What are some of the things that you have in your office, at work? What are some of the things that you have in your home that you enjoy seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, or touching? And they don't have to be expensive. They can be simple things. Flowers. Thank you, Donna. Love to go to Hy-Vee or Costco and get fresh flowers. Oh, yes, Annika, a crisp all morning. Can't beat it. And I love to take my dog for a walk. Of anyone who has animals or dogs in particular, if you say the word, you have to be prepared to go on one. Anything else? Oh, Diana, I love a good pen. I too love a good gel pen. That's my favorite. I even have a Mont Blanc that I found from my parents' collection. Cut of fresh grass and flowers as well. All right. Well, again, if you'd like more information, reach out. I'd be happy to tell you more about my book or start a book club. I'm open to do whatever meets your needs. We have a little bit of time if anybody has any questions or challenges that you'd like to either unmute or type in.
Yeah, I have a quick question. First off, Michelle, thank you so much for your insights today. They have been so helpful, not just in my own life, but encouraging others around me. And my question for you is, whether it's a coworker, in my case, as a current college student, a professor, what if people who are around us and we interact with on the daily are not positive, and we try to not make them positive, that sounds a little forceful, but encourage them to be positive and they don't buy into that per se.
Yeah, and that's one of the most difficult parts of changing. It's difficult to change our behavior, let alone try to change somebody else's behavior. And I do talk about a 5-step process for influencing difficult attitudes. The one that I would encourage you to think about is influence the other person by letting them know how their attitude or their behavior makes you feel. You have the right to feel upset. You have the right to feel maybe unheard, but maybe they aren't aware of how they maybe have a low EQ. They aren't aware of how what they're saying and what they're doing is affecting others. And then invite a reaction. Well, what do you think? And I think if you let them know how their negativity is affecting you or a class or a project, perhaps they might change. The other is if they don't agree, you can put out a consequence and just say that, okay, if this is going to continue, I'm probably not going to put as much energy into this project or into this relationship because I have a choice. And if you choose not to contribute to it in a positive manner, I don't want to continue to invest my time. It's a tough call. Parents, the toughest thing that a parent or a manager, or in your case, might be a student, is to draw the line. But if you enable negativity, it will only continue.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michele.
Oh, thanks for asking. Anyone else? Great. Well, again, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Diana, for being a fantastic host. If I can help you, your team, your family, please reach out. I'm in the neighborhood usually, and I'm just a phone call or an email away.
Awesome. Thank you, Michele. And I actually do have a question. And it's kind of maybe a more personal question too, but what do you do about the news? I know you mentioned, like you recently saw, what's happening in Florida, but is there at any point like a time that we should just completely turn it off? Or what's your kind of stance on and how to kind of moderate what you take in, whether it's news or other sources of potentially negative influence?
Yeah, I would say limit. I think it's good to be informed with what's going on in the world, but I think you also need to be careful. Social media can also contaminate our mindset and our attitudes for the day. So one of the things, this was just what Greg and I did during the pandemic, is that while we were fixing dinner, and we did that exercise together, we had the news on, but then we turned it off. So we'll watch the ABC, NBC, CBS news, but we try to stay away from Fox, CNN, I got off of Facebook for a while. It just was becoming so emotionally draining. So knowing your limits and boundaries and stick to it.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that. And I did put, for everyone still on here, there is a survey in the chat. It is a 2-question survey. So I think it hopefully easy to take and really for the purposes of sharing feedback back to Michele, but also to understand what future topics would you like to hear in presentations as we plan out our 2023 Top 5 series. And just a reminder that the Top 5 series, it is monthly. So always in the format right now, at least with an online webinar. So we hope to see you back next month. And thank you again, Michele. I really have enjoyed all the different pieces of today's presentation. Particularly, I liked the tune-up techniques and what you shared with seek comfort with change. Because I have never seen those words together in one sentence, especially working with entrepreneurs, where entrepreneurs can really thrive on that change, but most people don't find that comforting. So I really liked that take on that. So thanks again, Michele, and please reach out to her. You see her contact information here on the screen, and I'd encourage you to follow up with Michele directly. So thank you.
Make it a great day for yourself and others.